Welcome to Reef Diary, day 58. With the skimmer clean, the next step is to clean the area under the skimmer in the skimmer section. So I had these attachments from VCA, but I've not used one with anything other than the MaxiJet. So I wanted to try the Synchro Nano from Sicce with this attachment and see how it does. And specifically, I wanted to try the crevice tool that is designed to work in those corners. At some point, I'm going to have to force myself to clean the area where my heaters are between the baffles. I also printed an attachment over the front. It's a screen to keep the big stuff from getting sucked into the pump itself. So my sump has been dirty for some time. I don't remember the last time I cleaned this. It feels like 6 months, maybe longer. And there's all kinds of stuff under the skimmer stand. There's stuff under the sock box. It just needs to be removed. So next step, of course, is to remove the skimmer stand itself. Now my stand is very shallow. It's only 1 inch tall, but it holds a really big protein skimmer. And if you look closely, you'll see there's all kinds of detritus kicking up and kind of swirling around the bottom of the sump. With the pump plugged in and tubing going to a nearby bucket, I can start vacuuming the bottom of the sump. Now, some people say this is silly or pointless or it's easier with a shop vac. I kind of like doing it this way. It lets me work in the sump for a while and remove what's bothering me and extract a little bit of waste. I don't really want to go to a shop vac and suck out 50 or 100 gallons out of my sump all at once. One thing that I noticed with that screen attachment, I can almost use it like an eraser to kind of rub the stuff off the bottom acrylic of the sump and, push it together in a group. It also does get clogged up on the screen instead of getting sucked in because it's big stuff. And so I would have to pull the screen off and shake it out in the bucket or remove it entirely and just start vacuuming the larger bits, that are still remaining in the sump and hope the pump won't get clogged. Ever since this attachment came out, I love it. If you don't want to waste any water, you can literally have the tubing going into a nearby 10-micron filter sock, and it'll capture all the big stuff, and the finest of dust will come out of the sock and kind of make the tank a little opaque or cloudy. But this is such a nice way to just get things out of your sump that normally you'd sponge it out, or like I said earlier, shop vac every drop of water out of your tank to get all the crud off the bottom. As with many tasks, if you do this more frequently, it's much easier than when you try and deal with it after it's been there for a long time. So what I'm trying to work on now is kind of a lot of work. I mean, think about it. This was the area under my protein skimmer. It's the last place I want to actually work in the sump. And so it will wait until a day like when I take the skimmer out for a big acid cleaning. And then when I'm ready to put it in, I definitely want to clean this zone completely. So that's why it seems like this is a lot of slow, tedious work. It probably took me 10 minutes or so to actually work this area completely and get everything out until I was content and was ready to put my skimmer back in. The nice thing about the Sicce pump is it's smaller in your hand compared to a MaxiJet pump. And by the way, MaxiJets are just hard to come by. It seems like no one has them. They're out of stock, and we have no idea when we're going to get them back. And this would be really good for a smaller sump. So when you have those small little setups, those nano setups you're trying to clean, this could be a very useful tool for you. And that attachment that's on the front of the pump is probably like $13, $14. It's not expensive at all. And then I tried out the crevice tool, worked my way around the corners of the sump, each of the little areas to get all the little things that were sitting there. And it lets me kind of knock off things that are harder in there as well. It could be some coralline, it could be some vermitid snail tubes, just filter feeders of some kind. And I just want to get them all gone. Something else I like to do, and I recommend you do it as well, is to take a sponge and clean the front panel of your sump. Work your way around the under the water as well as above the water line, because that's where a lot of the slime builds up. And then do the side walls, just do what you can reach so that way you get a better visual of everything in the sump from every different angle. And if you can't quite get it off with a sponge or a magic eraser, you could always use some kind of a gift card, hotel key card, credit card. These work really well, and they work on acrylic, they work on glass, and they don't leave any scratches or any damage. Now that that's accomplished, I'm ready to go ahead and put the protein skimmer back into place. So, stand goes back in where it was, which I cleaned the stand, by the way, in the sink. You didn't see that as part of the footage today. And I chipped off a lot of hard calcified tubes from the acrylic piece. And then to put the protein skimmer in, the best option is to always remove the collection cup entirely, set it aside where it can't be damaged, and then take the body of the skimmer and put that into the sump first. And so that is what I'm doing. I'm trying really hard here not to tangle up cords and tubes and all that. But, it's just one of those jobs where you have to just do your best. The Nios 300 protein skimmer has 2 circulation pumps that create the foam within the body. So I plug one into my apex, which turns it on and off based on the feed timer. And then the other one is plugged directly into a DJ power strip where I can flip off a switch. So if for some reason I want to do something with the protein skimmer for a few minutes, I can just flip the switch off rapidly while I'm standing there without having to find the cord to unplug something. But if I need the apex to turn it off, I have the option on the Fusion dashboard as well. So between those two things, I use one or the other all the time. As I was working with this, I realized my protein skimmer wasn't sitting properly on the stand. I wanted the stand to be in a certain spot. You know, everything has to be just right, because once it's running, I'm going to basically leave it alone for the next 3 or 4 months. I'm not going to be constantly messing with it. The collection cup goes on next. It just presses down and twists slightly. I believe that's called a bayonet fitting. And then I run the tubing to my nearby waste collector. And I run that power cord from the skimmer attachment, the squeegee attachment, to a plug on the apex system, which will then turn on that squeegee, I believe 4 times a day for 2 minutes per session. I would like to point out that I could have definitely trimmed this down shorter to just get to the point, but I was thinking this is kind of what it's like to run a reef tank. You kind of keep making little tiny tweaks and little tiny adjustments, and let me adjust that just slightly. Let me move that over 1/4 of an inch the other way. And is that cord going to interfere with that thing over there? And is there still room behind it for the tubing? All these things are happening in our heads. All right, I'm done, I swear. So let's turn it on. And hopefully it'll be operational because I went to a lot of trouble to clean it. Ooh, that looks good. So the first pump was turned on. And then I fire up the second pump by flipping that switch I told you about on the power strip. And I'm going to go behind the skimmer right now, which is the front of the sump, the refugium area, as well as the front of the reef. And I'm adjusting the height within the body of the skimmer. I like the foam to be right at the base of the collection cup. And so I'm adjusting it up right now to get that sweet spot. And then I observe, and if I have to adjust it down a little bit, I will, but that's what's happening. It takes, about a minute or so to kind of find exactly where it needs to be after a big, deep cleaning. Because when you take it completely apart, things are not the way you left it last. Please give this video a like if you found it enjoyable or interesting or educational. And if you're not a subscriber, please do subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. The only other thing I did today for the reef tank was to clean the glass. It definitely needed cleaning. I had this huge green sheen, and I give all the credit to my regular daily potassium dosing. Some of you may have noticed I didn't clean the other areas of the sump, like the return zone or the refugium zone. That can be done on another day. I don't have to do all of this on the same day. I just need to work on the area where the protein skimmer is going so I could get it back into the system and turned on. Lastly, here's a couple of progress shots. So look at the margins of that coral coming back to life. And this one is getting a little bit more green every single day. In about 3 more weeks, it's going to look perfect.